But first, the skies are shrinking quickly and dramatically for the Boeing MAX 8 after 18 Canadians were killed in an Ethiopian air crash over the weekend. A blanket ban was enacted today by Australia, Malaysia, Singapore, and the entire European Union, including the UK. Air Canada flights to Europe from Halifax were canceled this afternoon and starting to cancel other flights overseas. Never one to shy away from being an expert, Donald Trump tweeted this. He said airplanes are becoming far too complex to fly. Pilots no longer needed, but rather computer scientists from MIT. I see it all the time in many products, always seeking to go one unnecessary step further when often older and simpler is far better. Spoken like the genius that he is. All right. As a sign of how seriously Canada's taken the ban, Transport Minister Marc Garneau canceled several events this afternoon to huddle with civil aviation experts. All this to look at potentially grounding the plane. Air Canada, WestJet, and Sunwing have a total of 41 737 MAX aircraft in their fleets.
At the moment, we have no information whatsoever to lead us to any hypothesis, and yet there are many possible causes of this tragic accident. So we are in the data gathering mode. We're looking for information. We're talking to all the experts, not only in Canada but also in the United States, and also we're in touch with our Canadian airlines and the pilot unions.
All right, let's bring in two aviation guests with very different areas of expertise. Joseph Yeremian is CEO of Thermodyne Engineering. He's in Toronto to explain the aircraft side of this concern. And Gabor Lukács is a passenger rights advocate. He joins us from Halifax. Joseph, I want to start with you. Do you think we have to wait for the U.S. to decide, or should we be going with the countries grounding these aircrafts around the world?
Basically, the FAA and also Transport Canada, they are confident that they cannot ground these airplanes unless there is a definite reason that they have discovered. So far, they have not discovered anything. And there are some indications that there was a glitch in the computer which brought the airplane down, but they have taken precaution for that by training the pilots so that they can override that condition. So from Canadian and United States point of view, there is no need at this stage to ground the airplanes. So if there is something which is not broken, don't fix it. So that's the
I'm
answer.
curious.
Yes?
Yeah, is this, in your view, I know it's early, you're waiting to find out, but I'm wondering if it's a training error as much as it is a mechanical one, if what you're saying is right, that this should be something that can be overridden in the cockpit.
Right. It's training issue because Boeing has instructed or sent a recommendation to train every pilot that is flying 737 MAX 8 on this issue so that they can override the wrong signal if there is anything during their flight, especially during takeoff. During the takeoff, there is all kinds of vibrations and electrical signals going back and forth. There could be that one signal gives the computer an error saying that your nose is very high, you will fall from the sky, therefore bring the nose down. So the pilots should have been trained properly, and their training to be verified that they can do the job if there is such a situation. So it's a matter of knowing what the situation is and taking over. But unless there is another problem, yes, that is possible. But Boeing has instructed, before these accidents, have instructed all the airlines saying that there is this situation, train your people on this. So that is my very first approach to this problem. But the black box will retrieve all that information, which may take a few days or a few weeks until they definitely see what was the problem.
All right, Gabor, I want to bring you in on this. I'm curious what rights passengers have if a flight is canceled, because I don't think the Passenger Bill of Rights has kicked in just yet. There seems to be a beginning here. I don't know how many this is going to spread to in the near future. What are their rights now?
Well, first of all, the government's legislation does not cover anything. It's not enforced currently, but even if it were, it would not help passengers. We know that this is very problematic legislation. In fact, even under the golden standard of the European Union for passenger rights, passengers would not have the right to cancel their flights based on their perhaps very well grounded but still subjective fears. So in this situation, what should happen in Canada is airlines voluntarily agreeing to rebook passengers or voluntarily agreeing to refund passengers as a way of avoiding the government grounding those aircraft. We indeed don't have information yet what happened, but in many cases one has to make decisions, including life and death decisions, with incomplete information. And the question here is this: with this much information, are we going to risk more passengers who may not feel comfortable getting on those airplanes, or are we going to ground those aircraft as a measure of safety until we confirm from the flight data recorder that it was not a model, a whole, over the board, across the board problem?
One thing I wanted to clarify with you is, like, you really don't always know what kind of plane you're getting when you book a ticket on, or even when you check in, it's not necessarily flagged. What about a passenger who gets to the airport or is in the boarding lounge and looks out and says, oh my goodness, it's one of those MAX 8s, I'm not going on that plane. Gabor, are they allowed to get off without a penalty, or should they get off without a penalty?
Passengers can always choose not to fly, but legally they don't have the right to cancel their trip as it stands because they have mistrust in the aircraft. I would urge airlines, and I'm also calling on Transport Minister to negotiate with airlines that in exchange for not grounding those aircraft, the airlines will allow people to cancel or rebook in such situations. But currently the law does not provide such a right.
All right. Last point, I want to go back to you on this one, Joseph, if I may. Donald Trump, as we saw in his tweet, says these planes are just too complicated. We should go back to the good old days. I think I read somewhere there's X millions of dollars of code in these things. Are they too complicated?
They are very complicated, but with the complication comes safety. Like the old days, I'm surprised that when I came to Canada, it was a very primitive airplane. Now I see the complexity of these airplanes, but every complexity has its value, its added safety, rather than just making it complicated for whatever reason. No, there is no, there has to be lots of reason for making it complicated. When you say complicated, it's adding features, adding controls, adding softwares, adding so many things, making sure that that airplane is not going to crash. And also, it comes with it other features like detection devices, prevention, and when they can see the altitude, they can see the temperature outside, they can see if there are storms in front of them. Like, these are features added.
All right. I'm out of time. Thank you both. Appreciate your insight on both these issues.
Thank you.